I'm John Cosgrove, Chair of the Water and Sewer Rate Structure Committee. This open meeting of the Water and Sewer Rate Structure Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. For this meeting, the committee is convening by Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the only item that actually requires a vote this evening is the first item, which is to approve the minutes of September 17th, 2020. There is one correction to the minutes that were sent to the members, and that is at the bottom of the footer on each of the pages from the minutes. Incorrectly shows a date of February 20th, 2020. We will correct that to reflect September 17th, 2020 upon approval of the minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it then. It's okay.
Okay, Steve.
John, roll call vote of the four members. You can come off one by one.
Okay, I guess Harold first.
Yay.
Steve?
Yes.
Tom?
Approve.
Harris?
No, you're number 4.
Okay, I'm number 4. Okay, yes.
Okay.
I was wondering about that, Dave. Sorry to be such an idiot.
That's no problems.
Excuse me, can I, who put that motion forward? Was it Tom or John?
Tom.
Okay.
Tom.
Seconded by Steve.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, Mr. Chair, is a report from the Water and Sewer Superintendent, Sean Harrington, and I see that he's here.
Hey, Sean.
Doing. Hi,
Hello,
everyone.
Sean.
Evening, everybody. So, okay, updates, some capital projects, upcoming capital projects. We are replacing the Lake Drive sewer pump station will be replaced. That's construction will be in summer of 2021. That is pending in design. That's still in that phase. The Mark Tree Road Central Ave water main is going to be replaced all the way to Pine Street. Again, that's for this summer 2021. Design on that one is almost complete. So they both look like they'll be happening this summer. Water meter replacements will be starting back up again. Happy to report that we'll be starting that again. We'll be doing second meter replacements and starting our replacement program again at the end of this month. So we started scheduling those appointments, and we'll be doing those installations and replacements end of March, for last week of March, and then into April, and full tilt as usual from there, for the most part, with some tweaks. We have some SOPs. We established an SOP and some ways to keep things safe for the workers and for the residents. So that's starting back up again, which is good. We'll be doing water main flushing. We'll be full hydrant flushing this spring in April. We did not do one last spring. What we did, actually, we flushed in October. We flushed dead ends, all dead ends in town. There's a dead end flushing program already been established years ago. So we did that in October, and we'll be doing the full system in April, like we aim to do usually every year. And in general, it's been busy winter. We've had water main breaks. We've had a few water main breaks. It's been hectic, a little hectic this winter. The Countryway water main was completed. That water main replacement, a 900-foot section of 8-inch water main was replaced in the fall, this past fall. And currently well 2 is being rehabbed at the treatment plant, water treatment plant. That's going along as planned, no issues there. And that is kind of like my update for the spring and capital work for the summer. It'll be good to get back to the water main replacements, excuse me, the water meter replacements in the second meters was kind of the last thing that we held off on from the COVID outbreak, or pandemic here. So once we get those back up and running, we'll be pretty much fully going on all our normal routine. So
John, why don't you kind of go over what's been going on lately with COVID so everybody knows how hard you guys have been working?
So lately with COVID, it's definitely, it's continued to be a challenge. So recently we did have 2 members of the division come up positive for COVID and had to quarantine some people in the division, which obviously makes things very challenging. So we followed guidelines and was in touch with Tiffany throughout, Tiffany from Public Health. Everyone did what they were supposed to do and quarantined, and everyone, for the most part, people are back. We still have a couple of people out. But we're getting back to fully staffed again within the next few days. But the whole thing is challenging. I mean, we keep one person to a vehicle for the most part as best we can. Masks. The biggest thing, and Bob Karras and I talk about it all the time too, is watching for complacency. We're at the tail end. We've been at this for a year. So it's very easy when things are going smooth and there's no issues. It's easy to get complacent. I do it myself. So it is one thing that we talk about with staff all the time. There are times, ideally we do one person to a vehicle at all times, but there are times if you have to transport vehicles or something along those lines that you do have to go to a vehicle. So it's very important that we stay on top of everyone with the masks and sanitizing and disinfecting vehicles before you get in them, and then when you're done with them. When you see people, we have backflow testing going on. So our backflow tester, Nigel Dwarika, he's done a great job throughout this pandemic. He's done facilities all through town, very cautious. We established an SOP there, something for him to follow. We were in touch with the DEP on what we should be doing to make sure we stayed in compliance on our backflow and cross connection program, which is extremely important. The hospital actually outsourced. We had the hospital outsource the backflow testing there because they had reported back that they had positive cases. So we had them get a private contractor to do the backflow testing there. But other than that, we followed everything that we needed to, and we got all our cross connection requirements done. But it's challenging. There's no doubt about it. I mean, even if you're working in a crew, you're on a water main break, by nature of the work, you need to communicate with people in the backhoe. If you're in the trench, you got to pull your mask down. Or if it's 100 degrees outside, you got a mask on your face. There's periods. What I tell everybody is to spread out. If you need a mask break, if that's what you want to call it, go off by yourself, pull it down for a few minutes, get a drink of water, and then come back. I mean, at the same time, we have to, we juggle it as best we can and be safe too. I mean, when you're around heavy equipment, whether it's excavators, dump trucks, backhoes, flushing trucks, vectors, those sort of things, there's periods, there's times you have to pull that mask down just to be able to communicate a little bit. So other than that, though, complacency is kind of the biggest thing we watch for now, just because we've been at this for so long and things were going smooth for a while. So that's the biggest, probably the biggest challenge right now.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question about that work you were talking about? Is that part of ongoing maintenance, or is there any major issues that we need to be aware of?
Just in general, so the hydrant flushing is just done. Is that what you're talking?
Yeah, and also and the water main replacement, some of the other replacements you were talking about.
Sure, yeah, those, so the capital stuff, the Lake Drive sewer station and the water main replacement on Marktree Road and Central Ave.
Yeah,
That's just part of our town's replacement program. That's been ongoing for years, long before I ever showed up. We have a solid replacement program. A lot of the stations have been done since I've been here and prior. So this is part of that, just our normal replacement. Same with the water main. We usually do an in-house water main replacement. We have done one the last 3 years. That's usually kind of, we decide over the summer what we're going to do on that, if we're going to do one or what the plan is. We have a general idea, but nothing's really set in stone until the summer starts. The hydrant flushing is part of just the maintenance, keeping cleaning the water mains. By doing that, it's a way to clean out the water mains and flush the system. So that's really a water quality thing. That's why we decided to do the dead ends in the fall. We figured if we're not doing the full flush, we might as well get the dead ends that aren't looped through, that don't get that same circulation that the rest of the system gets. And the water meter replacements, that's part of it. After about 10 to 12 years, water meters start to age out, they wear out, and actually the older they get, the less reliable they are. So it's good to change those out every 12 years or so, 10 to 12 years.
Great, thanks for the confirmation.
Yep.
So, Mr. Chair, the next item on the agenda is just a stormwater fee update. It is almost 1 year ago that the public hearing was going to be held by the select board. And in fact, I'll do a little screen share here just to remind everybody, if you can see that on March 24th at 8 p.m. there was going to be a public hearing by the select board about the implementation of a stormwater mitigation fee. And we had this little thing called COVID-19 that popped up and basically made public meetings not allowable. And at the time, we thought it was just going to be a few weeks, so the select board postponed the public hearing by a few weeks. Then it was clear after the first postponement that this was something that wouldn't be able to be taken up, and they deferred action on it. And they deferred action on the stormwater fee public hearing until at least a year later. As the committee is aware, there was a citizen committee put together, which there were representatives from the Water and Sewer Rate Structure Committee that participated. And there were several recommendations that were going to go forth to the select board. And I believe that we will still go forward with those same recommendations. And that was not the adoption of an enterprise fund, but a special stabilization fund to which the fees would be deposited and reserved to offset capital costs, but that the town should continue to manage its operational costs associated with stormwater runoff with current revenues. And that would require the creation of a special stabilization fund, which was an article that was on the warrant to be taken up at the town meeting back in 2020. that was also withdrawn in order to remove as many articles as possible to keep the town meeting short last year. The article does appear, the creation of a special stabilization fund on the annual town meeting, which is scheduled for May 1st. But recent conversations with the select board, and it makes sense, is that they will probably withdraw that article for now and present it in the fall so that they can hold a public hearing on the stormwater fee in the fall, when it's more likely that folks will be able to attend in person. Although there have been public hearings electronically and via Zoom and other applications. It's people get a better sense of and feel more involved in person when they can meet up in some place like Powers Hall. So the select board are going to hold off until such an opportunity exists. But I was showing you the legal notice because that's basically the fee structure that was being presented to them. The important item here is this first line, tier 1. That would be most residential properties, what they would be looking at an annual fee for the stormwater runoff. And the last recommendation from the citizen committee was, which I know the committee said that they were receptive to doing, that should the stormwater fee be adopted, that determining what the rate should be in the future would be an added responsibility to the Water and Sewer Rate Structure Committee, and you would opine and make recommendations to the select board annually. So that that component is there as well. Any questions?
Are we scheduled to be in front of them again anytime soon? Select.
Yeah, the next time that we're scheduled to be before them is at the end of June for the water and sewer rates. As the committee knows, it was decided to keep all rates flat last year. Again, because of COVID-19, we were, as you may all recall, that the recommendation that went to the board back in 2019 to recapture funds that were lost with the with CocaCola bottling operations ending, which was a significant amount of revenue, which basically helped provide a subsidy to most other customers in town. With the loss of Coca-Cola, that was a substantial hit in revenue that there was a recommendation of either implementing a fee structure that would cover the deficit within 1 year or do it over a 3-year period. Understandably, the select board did opt the 3-year period, which there was going to be an increase, and there was an increase in FY20 of about 2%. You would have been looking about a 2% increase in 21, the year that we're in, but we did not increase it, and about a 2.5% increase in 22. So that will be the time that the committee will be before the selectmen. That will likely be remote. Other questions on the stormwater? The next item is just an FYI. It's really thought the committee would be interested. The town's billing software, billing and collection software, is a system that was procured in the early 1990s, and the technology was basically from the 1980s, running on, although they've made some modifications, but generally it was a green screen system, which is what we still use. And we use it for billing all our major receivables, property taxes, motor vehicle, excise, water and sewer charges, business taxes, details and items like that. The The application is old. It's very difficult to work with, especially trying to interface with other applications. It works off of an AS400, an IBM AS400. Very reliable technology for many, many years, but not very conducive to working with other applications. As well as the company is, the current software vendor is doing what is legally required of them, but they truly don't want to be supporting some of the applications that we have because we're one of their only Massachusetts clients. And each state has different tax laws, so it's not like they can take the tax package from one state and use it in another state. So we went to town meeting seeking an appropriation for the purpose of replacing the application, and we're in the process of developing a request for proposal that will be going out in the next few months to basically replace all our collection and billing software. And I anticipated from start to finish, it's going to be about a 36-month process from the time that we issue the bid specs to the time that we are able to shut down, abandon the old system. So I will give the committee updates as we meet each time, just to let you know how we're progressing on it. It's going to be a major undertaking. A lot of time and effort has already been put into it by various employees from the different departments, including the water and sewer representatives and several others from DPW, but it impacts every department: the police department, fire department, school department, health and human services. So it's wide-reaching.
That's a major undertaking.
It is. The going back to water and sewer rates that I just mentioned, we will need to go before the board in June, at the end of June, and we will, I can tell you based upon data to date that an increase in the sewer rate is unavoidable. We knew that before, but it's been reaffirmed. Interesting, I'll share with you some data. Here we go. Can folks see that?
Yep.
Okay, so what I thought would be interesting is, first off, this is certainly showing the impact with CocaCola's departure. This is showing the amount of 100 cubic feet that is billed in each of the 4 steps for the last 5 fully completed fiscal years, fiscal 20 back to fiscal 2016. And what's interesting here is, I'm going to highlight this particular area. This is a step 1. And you can see in here, this is this category is the primary water. This is not second meter usage. This is the primary meter, but it excludes CocaCola impact in the rates. It includes every other customer but CocaCola. And what's interesting here is the big jump up in step 1 water bill in 2020. And what that reflects is that with the shutdown of the economy that happened starting in March through, well, certainly all the way until today, but that last quarter, what that's shown, why that consumption is so high, that's reflecting a lot of people that were home using water. So they weren't in the office, they weren't at the job site, they were home. So we actually saw, and if you look over the prior 4 fiscal years, 2016, 2017, 2018, pretty consistent in terms of the usage. But the big jump up is reflective is what the added customers, more people were staying home, more people were using water and such. The same thing at step 2, we went from 436 million cubic feet to 442. Again, reflective of more people being home. At the high end, where generally it's the commercial accounts that is creating that sort of usage, you see this big drop off. And of course, the important thing here is this is without Coca-Cola. So this is not because of Coca-Cola, this decline. This is a decline from the rest of the commercial operations in town, the office buildings, the hotels, the schools. And you can see this drop off here, 191 versus 168. And of course, this is meaningful because this is
Stop it.
at step 4, we have the highest rate, so it generates the most revenue. So for every 100 cubic feet less that's billed, it impacts our revenue more so than when a residential property uses less water, because they tend to be billed at step 1 and step 2. But interestingly enough, the secondary water, the irrigation meters, was only a slight drop down in irrigation. So both businesses and residents continued to irrigate during the year. And most notably, and you'll see it in another chart I'll show in a minute, but there was truly no reduction in commercial use of irrigation water. And this particular year, 2018, the reason why that's low, that happened to be a very wet year, so people didn't need to water as much. But generally, it's in over 300,000.
Dave,
Yes.
look, go back to the page before. What's interesting is Coca-Cola bottled water, went down between 2019 and 2020 by 65,000 cubic feet or whatever, 65 million cubic feet, I guess is, or
Correct.
100, so it would be whatever the number is. It went down by 65, but if you look at the primary water number, oh yeah, so it went down excluding, it went down even by more.
Correct.
Okay, never mind.
Yep. So, and here's another example. You look at the percentage that's billed at each step. And again, this is mindful. You can see right here, again, our commercial accounts tend to get to the step 4, and the percentage during 2020 is at 17.9% compared to in the 20s in the 4 previous fiscal years. Yeah. But at step 1 and step 2, where people are home, it 30% versus below 30% in the previous 4 years. And in step 2, not as dramatic, but again, you can see there's a slight uptick in billable water at step 2 versus the previous 4 fiscal years.
Hey, David, how's step 4 tracking year to date for fiscal year 21?
I'll be showing that in just that's going to be my next slide. And it is a continuation of the story though. And in sewer, the same situation here. The drop down was not as dramatic as because of the number of folks that were home, and the step 1 and step 2 help offset the drop in step 4. But again, step 4 generates so much more revenue than step 1 and step 2. So the next slide I'd like to share with you all gets to the point that you were just asking. And this is looking at the first six, comparing 3 fiscal years, looking at the first 2 quarters, because our third quarter data won't be done until after March 31st. So just in the first 2 quarters in FY 21, our current fiscal year, you can see the total amount billed for residents compared to the first 2 quarters for residents in 2020. That is a significant increase in the water use. A significant increase in the water use. And to put into perspective, this 230,000 compared to 201,000 in 2020. That's a 14.2% increase in residential usage. In the first quarter of fiscal 21, that represents a 24.4% increase over FY 20. And conversely, looking at the commercial side, when you look at the second quarter, 44,299 cubic feet compared to 56,563, that's a 21.7% decline in commercial use. And the same thing, not as dramatic in the first quarter, but it's still the 58 versus 63, that's an 8.1% decline. And again, that decline means they weren't, the decline starts at step 4 and decline. So the dollars lost is greater for the first gallon of water saved. And of course, the committee members are well aware that what I always say is the price structure required by DEP is that we have to charge a greater price per unit the more you use, whereas most people are accustomed, the more you buy, you usually get it for a lesser price. And in order to deliver water and process sewer, it's the first gallon of water that's the most expensive to deliver to the house because you get the whole infrastructure. But whether you use 1 gallon of water or you use 1 million gallons of water, basically most of the cost is associated with making sure that first gallon can get to the location. So it hurts in 2 manners, is we lose our higher revenue stream, but it doesn't translate into a lower cost of operation.
Those are fixed.
Other questions? So stop sharing there. So preliminarily, and I'm going to have when we get to the when we have our meetings in May and June, I will have much more detail for the committee to consider. But preliminarily, this is what we are potentially looking at for
The foreseeable future, right?
yes.
Can I ask you a question, David?
Yes, please.
As far as you know, again, kind of a hypothetical, are you aware of any situation with CocaCola? Are they planning just to remain there as a distribution center? Are they actively looking or to market this to another bottler, that this dynamic may change? Or is this, as far as you know, this is what it's going to be for the foreseeable future, that property?
We're not aware of them leaving because it is a convenient location for them for distribution. And in fact, they've closed some of their other operations for distribution and moved them to Needham. So the irony is, although we've lost the bottling operation, which basically went up north, we actually saw an uptick in employees at the location because they're handling more of their distribution out of there. So it appears,
right, but that doesn't really help our tax revenue, tax base, or any kind of revenue implications, does it?
Oh, it helps the tax base, but it doesn't
How
help.
so?
Well, because it's as they make the improvements to the facility, it's going from being taxed as a warehouse center to more of a commercial office space uh,
Oh,
center. So in that
interesting.
respect, the value of the building keeps
I
increasing.
see. Okay.
And the personal property taxes that are relate to businesses. So as they put more people in there with more computers and more stuff, we can go in and hit, and Chip can go in there and get more money.
Yes, yes, that is correct. And interestingly enough, manufacturers, they were considered a food manufacturer because it's a bottling plant. And when you're considered a manufacturer associated with foods, that equipment isn't taxable at the local level, whereas other business equipment is. So again, that equipment pulled out didn't really cost us tax revenue, but the new equipment they're bringing in is generating an incremental more of taxes. Where the significant hit is for us is in our water and sewer operations.
Yeah.
Because again, and that's where it's been an impact. And then of course, the other positive thing is the jobs were kept in Needham. Although we don't generate any payroll taxes or anything, but it's certainly good for the local economy. And to the extent they go to local restaurants in the area, there is a meals tax component that.
Yeah, when that comes back, yeah.
So it's always better to have vibrant businesses in the area than not to have it.
Sure. Right.
So, but preliminarily, I think we're looking at a rate increase at about 3% in the area of the sewer cost because of the impact of the drop in the decline in consumption exclusively to Coca-Cola. I believe that most of the commercial use will return. There may be some reduction as some entities have found that work from home will work for them, that a percentage of their workforce may be home a day or two a week.
It'll be a hybrid system, yeah.
Correct. So with that, so there'll be, so I anticipate there'll be some drop off. The other thing is, I truly believe, I don't know if folks are aware, but the Sheraton Hotel basically closed down operations March of last year.
Yeah.
And it's on the auction block next week.
Oh, it is.
So, yes. So if you're interested in buying a hotel, if you get $250,000 right now, you can register to be a potential bidder.
Is TripAdvisor going to be around, Dave?
Yes, they've been communicating with us. They're truly believing that they're going to be having, again, a hybrid work situation, but they're going to be having their people back by September. With every passing week, they're seeing some improvements in terms of volume. They've expressed that there's and I think we can appreciate a pent-up demand of people just wanting to get away. And they think that they're changing some of their marketing strategies, changing some of their interest stories and such, encouraging more local vacationing, recognizing that people may either due to continued restrictions or feeling uncomfortable to travel distance, meaning by plane or by ship, but folks may be willing to travel in the state or in New England. So, and of course, they're a worldwide operation, so they're trying to focus their promotions to people in the area that where you are geographically, they push out information related to things nearby to your geographical location. So so they're upbeat for the second half of calendar year 21.
Can I ask you a question about the sewer? You said 3%. Is that for all steps, or is that just a general increase?
That's my estimate of the increase, but that's the details that we will be discussing in terms of basically I need a 3% increase in revenue. So what mix can make that happen? And those are the things that I usually come
Okay.
to the committee to make recommendations of different approaches.
In May? Is that what we're looking at, that conversation?
That's what I'm thinking is May.
Okay, thanks.
On the expense side, interesting enough, as the committee remembers, I was forecasting what the budgets would be looking like back in 2019, what they'd be looking in 21 and 22. And in the case of expenses and salaries, they are lower than anticipated. In part, we have some control there. So the area that didn't decline is, and of course, the area that we don't have control over, and that's the MWRA assessment. That assessment has come in notably higher than what we're forecasting, because they were saying no more than 4% a year, but the increase is greater than that. And in part, they attributed this, and I know John knows this, is all the folks that were staying home in Needham because they weren't going to the office, their offices in Boston, they weren't using the water and sewer, just as we saw the same thing here in the commercial operations. Boston had a significant decline in usage in water and in sewer. So their assessments are dropping, but the MWRA, the same thing with the town, their cost structure didn't decline. So so the suburban communities are getting hit with a higher increase because Boston is paying less. That too should be mitigated over the next couple of years as people return to work. There is a thought that they might get some federal assistance, and if that happens, the preliminary rate increase that they told us might not be as bad, but it is definitely much higher than we were anticipating. But that's the other reason to wait to May, because we'll know by that time if they will be dropping their assessment because of any federal aid they may receive.
We had a meeting this morning, Dave, the MWRA, and that was brought up repeatedly, and they were quote unquote gaining confidence that they'll be receiving funds from the federal government to help, smooth those rate increases out. Boston apparently, like you said, it's just like the word crater doesn't do the money drop off justice. Falling through the floor is probably a little bit more accurate description of what's gone on with their commercial usage in Boston.
So the suburbs have to subsidize that? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes. Well, we all, because always subsidize it to some extent, Tom. It's just, the way it is. But
and the suburbs as a group aren't pushing back on that?
Well, what are you going to push back on, Tom? They have their expenses, and Boston's, it's doled out based on how much water you use, and Boston's not using it.
I understand that, but why aren't Boston ratepayers being responsible?
Because we're using a higher percentage of the usage. When Boston goes down, in their percentage, we go up. It is what it is. If 100 gallons going out the door before was 50% Boston, just to sake of pulling up a number, and 50% the suburbs, that's pretty straightforward. Well, now it's like 65% the suburbs and 35% Boston. So it's unfortunate, but, you know, they haven't, believe me, they've, you know, my outlook on things, and they've been very conservative, like Dave was saying. You know, where the town hasn't filled positions, they have not filled a ton of positions that, you know, that they were budgeting for. So I'm pretty satisfied with, you know, their numbers as being very, very cautious.
So I think what you're saying is, to the extent that they receive additional monies from the feds for whatever, their overall rates would go down, so we would get some lower amount than their preliminary, but even Boston would get even a lower amount than their preliminary. Is that correct?
My understanding is they're going to try to reduce the burden on the communities that are seeing a disproportionate increase.
Oh, that'd be good.
Boston is seeing a decrease.
Yeah.
Because they use less. Now, there is one piece, in the case of water, our water use from the MWRA was up significantly last year. So that piece was driving the increase in the water assessment. But we also will be using some retained earnings to appropriate for the assessment for fiscal 22, which with the intent of not having to raise the water rates. Unfortunately, the sewer, we're not in that same situation.
For the record, David, you are right. They were talking that the money will be used to soften the impact on the communities affected, which would be mostly the suburbs, Tom, in my reading of what they were talking about.
Thanks, John. Okay, thanks, John.
Was the increase of MWRA usage of water at all related to any reduction in water being provided from our well fields?
I have to defer to Sean on that, Sean or Bob Lewis.
There was periods of drought over the summer. Not so much less. It's not that we couldn't pull less or more from the well fields, but there's only so much we can pump. So it was a lot, mainly over the summer. There was that drought. We had a decent drought for periods of the summer too. So it wasn't necessarily that we couldn't pull from the wells, but there's a limit as to how much we can pump.
Bob, did we agreed to take less water out of the wells anyway, didn't we?
Yes, and just as a reminder, the town decided to abandon its permit with the DEP because, quite frankly, Needham residents didn't like having the water restrictions. And as long as the town had a permit with DEP, we'd have to comply with the DEP requirements. So the select board abandoned the permitted water. Permitted means how much we were allowed to take from our wells. There's also something called registered water, which basically were our rights all along that we can take from our own wells. And the town did that knowingly, and people said, well, we'll pay more because we know that the MWRA water is about 2 to 3 times more than what it cost us to produce. But folks made that trade-off. So we have had higher assessments from the MWRA for water, but last year was exceptionally higher.
David, I have one question. Has the town observed any meaningful increase in uncollectible accounts with respect to water and sewer accounts?
Not really, but I'm going to let Evelyn speak to that. Evelyn Panessa is our treasurer. She's the one that actually collects the money.
The short answer is no. We do have a lot of more people calling up and requesting payment plans. But the one thing to keep in mind is if the water is not paid, by December 15th, it's leaned against your real estate. And what I mean by that is we move it over from the water account to your real estate account. We don't actually, I'm not going to take your property for water or anything like that. But it guarantees that that's going to get paid, because the next time the real estate bills are paid, the first thing that comes off the top is the water bill. So eventually, yes, everything will get paid. We are seeing more and more payment plans, which means they have to pay 25% down, and then it's paid off in a year, and they have to remain current. So they don't stay delinquent for too long.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm not aware of any last minute topics, unless there's something that you wanted to bring up.
Not me.
So the only other item on the agenda for this evening is scheduling future meetings. And I've been suggesting several times now to the committee of getting back together in May. So
Fingers crossed that we can.
so it would be
Dave,
nice.
I would like to thank you, Evelyn, Bob Lewis, Caris, all the town employees for the work that they've done the past year. A lot of the citizens don't realize and or appreciate what you guys have been through. I drove by the new school down on Central Ave and noticed huge plates in the street. Bob related to me that they had a water leak there. It's, you know, you guys have done an unbelievable job. And as a resident of the town for a long, long time, I appreciate what you've done. I'm sure the rest of the board does as well. So
Definitely.
just
Yeah,
wanted to
speak for
give you
us, John.
guys,
Thank you. Yes.
just wanted to give you guys a really well done. I see Bob running around all the time looking, I'm going to use the word angry as opposed to pissed off. And he's usually going to the next disaster. So, and I know Sean's done a bang up job as the new water superintendent. Congratulations, by the way, Sean, at coming into the town of Needham on the wave of COVID. Talk about timing.
Thank you. Yes, it's been fun. Good learning experience. I'm ready for the next one. Learning experience.
Could be
Hopefully it
worse.
never happens.
Could be worse. You could still be at Boston Water and Sewer.
It's true.
Those guys looked borderline suicidal today at our meeting. They just they're having a tough time. There is when you had asked Steve about the collections, apparently in Boston there are ongoing problems with water and sewer collections. So I guess we're lucky.
Thank you for the words. How does Thursday, May 20th look for you all, John, Tom, Steve, and Harold? That's a Thursday.
Yeah, at this point, I have nothing on my calendar for that date.
Yeah,
Out of
same here.
curiosity, Steve, are you going to be in Needham or are you still going to be in sunny Florida?
I don't know when
I'm
I'm
jealous.
coming. Well, I just don't know. Actually, at this point, Carol and I bought a house in our community down here, and I'm having it remodeled. And when you order appliances and other equipment, you know, they're telling
You
you
gotta be there.
12 weeks, 15 weeks, 16 weeks. You know, we'll have those in, I'm sure. So, and I don't want to head north until the renovations are all done. You know, at this point, we think most of it might be done by the end of April, in which case I'll be back for May for town meeting. And then I'll fly back here in June or July for the rest of the work that needs to be done in the place before we, and then put this place on the market afterwards that I'm in. So right now it's unknown.
Well, the best of luck to you, Steve.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough life down here, I'll tell you.
Yeah, well, that backdrop just says it all.
Yeah, we can see you sweating, Steve.
What's that, Tom?
We can see you sweating.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a nice backdrop back there. It's not
Oh.
what the view from my window, but it is nice.
So,
You want to tentatively book the 20th, David?
sure. Does 6 o'clock work for you all?
Sure.
Okay. And
Evelyn, before we go, I have somebody that wants to say hello to you.
They're my favorite boys. Hello, what's your brother?
Two worst behaved dogs in the town of Needham. You are the worst.
No, how could you with that face?
John, I'm glad to see you let the dog out of the truck. Usually I walk by, I see the dog sitting in the truck.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the only time they behave, Steve.
then
Unless-
I'm sorry.
When I'm parked in front of Harvey's and I leave them in the truck, the people walking by on the street call the police department. So you think I'm kidding?
I don't think you're kidding. This is Needham.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm thinking just one more meeting because usually we present things to you and then you want to take a little time to think about it. So 2 weeks later, Thursday, June 3rd, does that work for the four of you?
And when is that selectmen's meeting in June, by the way, that you think we may need to be at?
The meeting in June with the select board will probably be the 22nd of June.
But you'll let us know, obviously.
Yes.
So June 3rd, right?
Yes, Thursday, June 3rd
That's fine.
at
That's
6
fine.
o'clock.
That works.
Okay. And I'll send Outlook invites just to get it on your calendars.
I mean, this is the younger one.
Oh, hi.
He's not as gray.
Yeah. Look at him. Look at
He
him.
weighs about 500 pounds.
How can you not love that? You gonna look at me?
Yeah, there he is.
There you are.
Checking us out.
He watches TV. He's actually reacting to you guys talking.
Buddy.
Who's that? Who's that miserable guy right there? Is that Tom?
Hey,
Hey, recognizes the voice. See that?
So, Mr. Chairman, if anybody would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll
I
make
make
a
a motion. I
I'll
second.
second it.
You got to take the vote, John.
Okay, I vote yay.
roll call.
Harold,
Yay.
Steve,
Yay. Tom. Well, he
Yes.
made it. So.
Tommy.
Very good. Thank you all, and
Yeah.
we'll see you in May.
See you in May.
Stay safe.
Thanks very much, David. Good
Thank
to see
you. Take
everybody.
care,
Stay safe,
everybody.
everybody.
Everybody stay safe.
You well.